All right. How's it going? I'm just applying the ink, so I want to show progress on my first page here. Look at that. I'm just, basically getting it all worked out. I'm doing the kind of Rob Liefeld 90s style, you know, reflections and hatching and stuff. And this is basically the first page. Second page is right here. And, it's him up on top of a building. It's my main character. I'm just messing around with the inks and, check it out. Look at that. It's kind of, if you don't know anything about my comic book, the character makes this crazy armor. Look at I did the speed lines on it's got like a stiletto bayonet on the helmet. It's got like, audio, it's got like, microphones and audio and cameras built into it, and like different like sensors, because he's tangling with supernatural beings, and he's a Christian, and he builds this armor. He puts a star on it because I just thought you guys might like to check out the see the lettering. I'm basically doing it by hand. And I'm going to put some silhouettes of trees in the background and whatnot. Basically, this is kind of like just some weird high-tech armor that he made, fairly high-tech armor. It's not quite like Iron Man. He does have an attachment that allows him to fly, basically. But, yeah, so this is just me messing around. Here's another... I basically enlarged these pages to work on right here. So there's page 2, and it continues on. World War III is in the air. Basically, I don't know if I'm going to have this many. I just kind of threw that all in there. So, I'll probably join some of those together. But yeah, it's kind of like the you see he's on top of a building, basically. And it says, things are tough everywhere. Civil war, martial law. And to make it worse, not everyone who appears human is actually human. Which also means not every government official or the police are what they seem to be. And then he takes off this this is where, this is kind of what I'm talking about. You're not really even supposed to know what that is. You're like, oh, there's a star on it and a knife or something. And, it's like there's like all this, weird, like there's a camera lens. And basically then you see it from another angle, sort of. And he takes it off and he's like looking down, off the building. And he's just kind of, the story's being narrated. Then he's kind of testing the armor. So because he's not testing the armor, he's testing the helmet. And to do that, he just because he's testing the field of view. Where is it? Talks about how he's testing the field of view. Here it is. Yeah, he doesn't have all right, his face is completely armored, so he doesn't have like a visor or he doesn't have like goggles or anything to look through. He's looking with a camera. So the camera has to match his natural field of view and his peripheral, basically, kind of like a video game, so that he can function and do crazy stunts and jump off of buildings and flips. And I might have him. Oh man, this would be great. I might rip off Spider-Man a little bit, but not with web, and have it where he makes some kind of a cable, like a synthetic cable, like Spider-Man. You notice like Peter Parker never gave the recipe for his webbing. It was all left up to your imagination. He was just a scientist, and he just developed this web that Well, in the movie, it came out of a gland in his wrist, so that was different. But in the comic book, he had to make his own formula for webbing, and he made this sticky cable that would shoot out of these little cartridges, and he would have to change cartridges, and he had a wristband of cartridges, if people remember correctly. You know what I mean? And if one ran out, he would change it, and then he'd have another one. And so my point being is, and he had a little inside his suit, he had a little trigger that he would press. That's why he would do this. That's why Spider-Man would do this, because he would press a trigger with his two middle fingers, and then that would allow him to shoot the webbing out of the device on his wrist. So I was thinking about where he devises a thing that it's like cartridges, where it shoots out of one of his forearm guards, and it's like, and he grabs it, and then it, like, and it cuts itself loose, and it's like a cable, but it like dissolves. But so that he can do like swinging, you know what I mean? Just, he doesn't have to do a lot of it like Spider-Man, but every now and then when he needs to, he could have that feature built into his suit. So I was thinking about adding that. Let me know in the comments down below if you like that. So anyway, he puts the helmet back on, and then he swan dives off of this, like, it's like a 3 or 4 story building with a concrete parking lot below, which I haven't drawn yet because I wanted to enlarge this first, which I have. So now I'm gonna do all the detail in the background, but I just want to get the figure and the anatomy and the perspective and everything. And he does like a flip, and then he lands on the concrete. And this is all just rough drafts. This is me, this is pretty much my final inking render. And I'm going to continue to ink the comic in this kind of 90s, I don't know, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld style, because I like it, and it's efficient. It gets the job done. You know what I mean? It looks dramatic, and like the lighting's pretty cool. And I'm just going to move on from there and keep inking this comic as I go. That I should be done pretty soon. I mean, I'm really on my way now. I've gotten the look down that I wanted. I'll show you. Let me show you pretty much, just so you know. I started inking this too. Here's a better view of his Nut. His name is Nut Job, for those who don't know. And it is kind of a derogatory name, but he gains that name from the media that just start calling him a nut job. So he proudly takes the name Nut Job, and and he kind of like uses it against them to make that his name, his vigilante name, because he's a vigilante outlaw, and that's why his name is Nut Job. You know what I mean? And because he builds all his own equipment. You know what I mean? And he's fighting against basically fallen angels, and monsters and giants come into this and everything, into the storyline. And and basically basically it would take, the average person would say he was nuts, and that he could never win. Basically, it's a whole psychology behind like our founding fathers, and you have to, if you don't get it, then you're not going to get it. Basically, if you get it, then you get it. So his name is Nut Job, and here's his armor. You can see he's got like a spring he's got like motorized joints and spring mechanisms, and in his boots and everything, so that he can like run faster, jump higher, lift, probably have the strength of like Captain America. He's very bulletproof unless it's like high velocity rounds or something like that. And you could probably sneak. He does get shot here and there. And he has another set of armor that flies, and it's got more heavy hardware on it. And I'm gonna get into that later, but it doesn't fly with like jet propulsion. It flies like a drone. It's got four rotors basically on a backpack. You know what I mean? And yeah, basically he hangs off of it like almost like, you know, he's connected to a drone basically, a large drone that could carry a human in a suit of armor basically. And you know, I'm gonna have him get into some serious scuffles with like mercenaries, paid mercenaries that are, you know, that are taking money to enforce martial law and stuff like that. You have to kind of, the storyline gets into like how people are like, you know, almost like the V for Vendetta. People are scared. You know what I mean? They, everybody, you know, no, people don't want to speak their own mind. Nobody wants to fight back. Everybody think, you know, everybody's kind of just stuck in this mode, and he breaks out of it. And yeah, so that's basically the storyline. But I just wanted people to know that I am inking. Here's the storyline. You can read it somewhere in the Rust Belt in Western Massachusetts. And he's like, so far, so good. Everything seems to be functioning. He's like, I can see fine. Field of view looks normal. And then he's like, the cam works fine. And then it says a very strange figure is perched on high. I think it says a very strange figure, robotic in appearance, is perched on high. An electronic human-like voice can barely be heard, conversing with itself in the night. And he's like testing the stiletto, and he's like, stiletto bayonet works fine. And then he's like, awesome, and he laughs to himself. He's like, awesome, haha, you know, because he's digging his new gear. This is the original drawing. Here it is inked now. You know what I mean? That's him basically sitting up on top of a building. So then then he basically, after he lands down in the courtyard in the suit of armor, you know what I mean? He basically he goes into the building. I'm looking for all these pages because now I've got them in all complete disarray. Here it is. I left these pages at work for like a week. So then here's an overhead view of him walking over to a window. You know what I mean? Basically, he just jumped off the top of this building, landed down in the con. And now he's like, yep, you know, everything's good, you know, and he's like, now to go make some coffee or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? What do heroes do? What is a armored outlaw vigilante do but stay up late, you know what I mean, work on his gear and drink mad coffee, right? So I got him. He like comes in this room. There's like a little camping light. I'm gonna work on all that as I get to it now. You know, this is where he pours some coffee, but it's a very easy frame to draw. I'm not worried about it. This was more, you know, I show him drinking coffee. I'll probably have some steam coming out of the cup. Then he like, you know, then he's like putting some clothes on, but he doesn't have the mask on because he's trying to look inconspicuous. And he walks out the door onto the street. And, you know, and then, you know, stay tuned for what happens next, I guess, unless you want to go watch my earlier videos. But he basically picks a fight with a cop that he knows is corrupt, or this is where I have to kind of decide as I get there. It's like I have the basic story down, but I can change it for whatever I think is more dramatic as I go, so I don't have to stick to the exact storyline that I have written out or that I have planned out. Although it would probably be pretty wise to do that, but sometimes I'll just come up with, I don't want things too solid because sometimes I'll come up with a great idea out of nowhere, which I think I do. I'm going to have a good idea where he's going to run into an angel. Like he basically he you know, I think maybe what I'll do is the way is instead of the way, or I had it written before, he goes into a store and he just assaults this corrupt cop. He doesn't assault him. He delivers justice on this corrupt police officer. Instead, I think I'm going to have him hang around outside the store and wait for the officer to come out. And then he looks at him through his goggles or through his camera, and he analyzes it, and he realizes that this cop isn't human. And this is where the storyline kind of picks up. And so he then pretty much attacks this non-human entity that's like possessing a human police officer's body, and thinks he kills him, and then he runs back to his pad, and lo and behold, the cop's waiting for him, but he's not dead, and he like shapeshifts into like some big, I don't know, like a reptilian or a werewolf or something like that. And what this story, how I'm doing demons or werewolves and supernatural phenomena and all this stuff is I'm classifying it all as demonic, because this is a Christian storyline. It's a Christian influence storyline. So you're gonna see at some point where like these characters, these like Satanists, so they call forth entities that look like either werewolves or this or that, whatever their demonic form was from like pre-flood Earth. You know what I mean? Like all the stuff like Enoch talks about is what this comic book gets into. So if you're a Christian, this is like a really good twist on on Christianity that kind of opens the gate to a lot of the higher level Christian like Christian doctrine and stuff like that the churches don't really talk about, I guess. And so anyway, which is, will give people that read this comic a basic understanding of what demons and all this stuff really are. And then basically he gets in a tangle with this thing, and it starts, beating him. And right about as he's like completely, he's just like, all right, he's just kind of like on the ground in his armor, and this thing's about to kill him. Like a huge battle angel shows up. I have to work on the concept art for this battle angel. And the battle angel is just like, bang, and like punches this werewolf or whatever this creature is I decided it to be. I think it's going to be a werewolf. I might backtrack. I don't know. I might backtrack at some, I don't know how, or I don't know if it's important. No, I'm not going to backtrack. I'm just going to keep going with the storyline from where I'm at. So basically he gets free and gets on. Basically he has this big motorcycle that he built, my character. It's like a steampunk, it's like a big giant, Judge Dredd steampunk basically type looking, or basically I want to say like industrial, like almost homemade but cool looking like motorcycle with almost like Judge Dredd with a big Gatling gun. Has a big Gatling gun. Like instead of a side car for a passenger, he turns the sidecar into a Gatling gun basically, and he can wheelie it and like manipulate it around and like just shoot the hell out of shit with the Gatling gun basically while he's I have pictures of it. I just don't feel like I'm pulling it up right now, but if you look at some of my older videos you might see it actually. But basically he like engage, he like basically takes off on his bike, and the thing starts chasing him, and then you just see like this angel come in with like a huge flaming sword, and then you just hear the werewolf like roaring off or like howling into the night because it died. The angel basically kills it, and while he's on his bike like tearing ass to like another spot where he can hide out basically, and basically that's how. And then he wakes up, and then that officer dies, And then he wakes up and the police are looking for him, and it's on the news that he killed a police officer, basically. And so now the whole SWAT team and everything's looking for him, and that's when he goes and he gets his heavier set of armor that flies, and he engages with the with like all the local basically mercenaries that are holding that town down, that are like demons and stuff like that. It's a very intense storyline, and gets into like how he woke up. If you want to go watch, it's getting kind of late now. I just wanted to show some of my inks off for this. And here, I'll show them one more. If you're just tuning in, I'll show you the inks one more time for the first page. There, it's looking pretty sharp. I showed my friend, and he likes it a lot. There it is, page 1, right there, where he's testing the helmet. He's testing this stiletto. It's like a stiletto bayonet that comes out, and he can stab people with it if his hands are tied, or he can cut with it. You know what I mean? It just comes in handy for different things. And I might even have him be able to shock people with it, like it's a taser blade or something. You know what I mean? Like he'll headbutt somebody with it in the chest and just blow their chest cavity open with a volt, with a electric shock or something like that. Something crazy. Who knows? I mean, I'm using my imagination because his armor is kind of like, it's like, he has a Gatling gun. He has a Gatling gun on his right forearm, and then he has like tasers and mace and stuff built into his left arm guard. It's basically a technological. He has gadget armor. He basically has gadget armor, and you'll see later on. You know what I mean? His armor almost kind of like Batman, but less. More kind of like a mixture of more like a mixture of Iron Man and like Punisher or something. I would say this guy is, which is odd because since I've come out with this, DC recently wrote in that. And I've been approaching a lot of big artists with this idea, and they're ignoring me. They won't talk. I can show you where they've acknowledged my comments and where I've left my links to my videos about this comic book, and then my views went up. So I know they know who I am. These artists, man, they want to act like they don't like I don't exist or something, but which is not a very Christianly thing for a lot of them to do, that say they're Christians, to just completely ignore another Christian that's trying to come up in the comic book industry. And that's a lot with what I talk about is, are these really Christians, people? Are you really supporting real Christians? But anyway, my point is DC recently had a run where Iron Man has given Punisher his war. What do you call it? The war machine armor, basically war machine armor. And that's funny because, I've been saying for a long time that my character is kind of a mixture of Iron Man and Punisher. And then not DC, and then Marvel gives, Frank Castle, Iron Man's war machine armor with a Gatling gun on it and all that stuff. So I just think, and I'm not saying they did a good job with the storyline. I watched Comic Book University's review of it. I think you can go watch it there, and it was actually pretty cool. I liked Frank. It was like watching kind of like a nut job. That just kind of proves, and Comic Book University liked it. That just kind of proves that my idea is solid. That Marvel did that they gave Punisher the War Machine armor, because that is pretty much the concept of my comic. It's an armored vigilante, basically, that fights, but he fights not only corrupt government, and military and stuff like that. He also fights it turns out there's a more supernatural edge to my comic book, and whether I'll ever grow it into a complete universe, I don't know. Right now, it's just its own contained storyline. I have done, like I said, I have started working on a universe, but I don't know if people will like it. But I have it right here. the beginnings of it. You know, this is a colored dude that becomes friends with him. He's kind of like his colored. He's like his contact to, like, you know, if he needs to go in, you know, into the ghetto or something, and kind of like in I don't know, basically, and I think it was like Sin City or something like that. You know, he's kind of like a gang. He runs a good gang instead of a bad gang. So, you know, whenever he needs like backup, this guy comes with like tons of dudes. Plus, he gets a bunch of militia guys behind him, and then basically, you know, he hooks up with this giant that he runs into. Like, look at the size of the hand. Look at this giant. He's got huge hands. I just gave him gigantic hands. Like, he could just pick up a human, like you know, around it. You know, he's basically like 12 or 13 feet tall, you know, and he's got these giant hands. So you got to figure, like, you know, that hand would like just engulf your like whole upper half or something, you know. He's like the Hulk kind of, but he's my version, you know. He's basically a giant. And here's a dude flying that has fallen angel technology, or, you know what I mean. And here's a sniper guy that I have. He's gonna have a rifle, you know what I mean, like his own like modified rifle and shit like that. And then you know, who else? This chick up in the corner here that's like a cyborg that the government like rewires, and I'm not gonna probably have, you know, such distinct nipples on her, but anyway, I just put that there for that just so I could see the anatomy, because even though she's basically a cyborg that they send after a nut job, basically. You know, I've gotten into that, like his ex-girlfriend or his ex-wife, the mother of his kids, turns out to be part of that, all these like demon things. And she, you know, basically ruins him, takes everything from him, including his kids. That's how the whole thing starts. He eventually gets revenge on her and beats her. He thinks she's dead, like he beats her. He does beat her to death, but they just revive her, and she's like brain dead. But she already sold her soul to Satan, to Satan. So she basically, they just rewire her and put her into this like cyborg, this like Baphomet, like flying supersonic like cyborg killing machine, and they send her after him basically. But they capture her and rewire her and make her the perfect housewife, and yeah. And they use her as part of the team basically. She does pretty much whatever she's told. She basically houses their you know, their mainframe computer, you know what I mean, in that form, and that basically is part of his. It's hard to explain. You got to, you know, you'll see. But basically the computer voice that, you know, kind of like in these movies where there's always a computer voice that they speak to do things, like will like sometimes download itself into this body, and they'll use it, or they'll download it into this chick's body and use it at, you know, to go take out tanks and, you know, crazy military, like, you know, helicopters and jets and shit like that. It's pretty cool. I'll have her flying around, shooting things down with missiles and shit like that. And yeah, so there's that. That's me just, you know, hanging out, having fun with my imagination. I'm trying to show people how to do comics as I do my comic live, and you know, just having fun. And I know I kind of came on here by surprise, and there's probably other comic book artists that are more famous than me. Having who's in here? Chad's in here. Mike Soilo's in here. Let's see some art. I showed you. What do you think, Mike? I showed you some of it. This is the stuff I'm working on now. Here's some of my art right here. Here's some of my art right here. These alien monsters are boarding a ship. They cut a door, kind of like the stormtroopers, push it in. They come in, he hears it, and then he wakes up to he tries to wake his wife up. He's like, hey, And then she turns around and she's like an alien thing. And then he wakes up and realizes, oh, it was a nightmare. There they are, like, but there are actual real aliens watching him, and he just has like a premonition. But anyway, just stuff like that. This is just me. This is done. This was like this was my inking 4 or 5 years ago when I was like, all right, I can't find a reliable inker that I can afford to hire. So I'm gonna have to start learning to ink my own work, and that's how that all started. So anyway, you know. Thanks, Chad. I'm just trying to build a real, you know, I'm trying to build a career and give people, you know, this basically I'm fighting the SJWs in Comicsgate, and I'm trying to, if what I have managed to do so far is I think I managed to awaken a sleeping giant because as soon as I announced I was doing a comic book live, to like I can literally show people this. I'm not talking shit. Like, I went on like several already really famous artists from like the Image that are the heads of Comicsgate, and you know, basically the big heavy hitters in this whole Comicsgate battle on YouTube. I said, hey, here's my cool comic about a Christian armored vigilante that's sick of it all. And they all started comic books. As soon as I told them, I swear, I kid you not, who's ever watching this, as soon as I told Zach and Ethan and all these guys, hey, I'm gonna make a comic. I'm not gonna sit around and talk about Star Wars. I'm not gonna sit around and make fun of SJWs. I'm gonna start pumping out cool comic books. I swear. As soon as I said, here's a link. I can show you the dates where I posted the links. I can show you the art I sent them, the links to all my art, where I wrote the synopsis of my storyline, and then I can show you how, like, within a week, every single one of them was starting their own comic book. So I don't care what anybody says. I've already had an effect on Comicsgate coming in here. I'm a good artist. I'm not the best artist. I'm not, but I'm a good artist, and I am someone to be reckoned with. I am a force to be reckoned with. So I think they realize that, and they better get on top of it. These supposed, and I don't see them really. I see a lot of hack and slash. I see a lot of, you know, they got their gay sound. They've got their effeminate male mascot. That's like, oh yeah, I know, yeah, you know what I mean? That's like, it's almost like they're just the new SJW lights. They're not. I don't know, man. I'm sorry, but I don't see them really standing up to. They're just, you know what? They're standing up to Star Wars and James Gunn. There's pedophiles all throughout the entire industry they worked for. Do you understand what I'm saying? The entire industry that these so-called leaders of Comicsgate worked for is into this stuff. You go check out their tweets. They're tweeting about they're making child pedophilia jokes. And I mean, you know, it's beyond comic books. Like, I'm here telling you, like, you know, basically, like, you know, we need a real change. We don't need the guys that, you know, how do you explain this? Like, you weren't controversial enough, obviously, because you made a name in an industry that supposedly hates conservatives. How, you know what I'm saying? You weren't so controversial that you got fired about it, apparently. So who are you? I don't know who these people are for sure. And I'm allowed to be a skeptic because people are very skeptical about me. And I've basically, you know, I have no criminal record. I've never done anything to hurt anybody, like it's not like I walk around just like intentionally hurting people and doing bad things or something. You know what I mean? So this whole, I'm skeptical of the entire industry and all these people. God bless them. Maybe they really are standing up to the SJWs, I guess. But I see the material they're putting out. It's still kind of like just almost like the same stuff that got us into this moral objectivity, which is just like random. I don't know, man. I'm more for the old school kind of Captain America and Spider-Man type storylines, you know what I mean, where that are more in depth. There's consequences for actions. You don't just go on on rampages and kill all these people, and nothing ever comes of it, and the heroes. You know what I mean? I have my character has moral dilemmas. He has areas where he's weak and he needs God to come in and help him. You know what I mean? It's like more, you know what I mean? It shows the consequences of certain lifestyle choices are shown in my comic book, like real life consequences. You know what I mean? Not just like everything's black and white, and the government's always right, and the police are always right, and the guys robbing the banks are always bad, and the guys, the poor guys that can't afford lawyers are always the bad guys, and that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? And the good guy always helps the police out, and the police love him. No, that's not how it works. That's not how that. That's not the message that I mean, it's cool to have some completely just off the chain storylines like that. I'm trying to offer something absolutely completely different than anything that's out there. You know what I mean? And it might not, I don't know how far it will manifest itself, but it'll be a good action-packed comic with like great storyline and characters and stuff like that. And it'll definitely be entertaining. And like I said, it gets way more. It gets into the spiritual aspect of things. It gets into possible, actual, real history, and it's more educational. It's not just what I'm trying to say, entertaining. It's also kind of educational. So that's kind of like what I wanted to say, and it's a little bit for more mature readers too. I wouldn't let like an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old maybe read it. Maybe a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old would actually enjoy it more. You know what I mean? I don't know if it would make a lot of sense to like maybe an advanced 12-year-old or something. I don't know, but anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there and just give you a rundown, basically the kind of the concept that I'm trying to convey. And anyway, everybody have a good night. It's obviously I only got one viewer, and it's like almost 10 o'clock. I got to work in the morning. I have a lot to do, and I'll show you more pages within the next week. I should have this. I'm really rolling. I inked that whole page in like no time, and I should have this. My goal is to get 5 pages fully inked and lettered and everything, and then send them off to some one of these artists for a portfolio review that are here on YouTube, and we'll see how that goes. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is the Action Artist. I'll see you later.